I'm Michael, and we are here in the Burning Man art tent, which is also known as the shade structure on my back deck. And today we are making Burning Man screen prints. So screen print is a nice process because you can make multiples. You can use this process to print on pretty much any kind of paper. Stickers, I've also seen people make t-shirts the same way. So it's really kind of a versatile art form. Andy Warhol used it, and I'm going to take you through all the steps you're going to need today to make a print like this of your own so you can give away to your friends. Gifting is one of the principles at Burning Man, so even though we're not on Playa this year, you can still make a print and send it to your friends who I'm sure you miss and love very much. So let's get going. So we're going to make a two-color print. This is color number 1, and this is color number 2. So Sam, can you get in here? We can take a closer look at these stencils. This is my cameraman Sam here. Thanks for being here. So what I did was I'm making a two-color print today. Your print might just be one color. That's fine. But I cut this stencil. I basically made a stencil out of a very thin sheet of Mylar. Can you see that? So that's what we use. That's what I used, and then I just used an X-Acto blade to cut out the stencil itself. So that's what we're going to be using to pull these prints today. And then I taped this stencil to a 11 by 17 piece of paper. That's sort of my standard for today. All right, so let's go over what is on the table right now. Okay, we've got our stencils. We have some scrap paper to test in case things go horribly awry, which they will. Just count on it. I have some more scrap paper and some Bristol, some kind of thicker paper to actually make the final prints on. So this is a little bit heavier stock. It's heavier than the just copy paper. This is just 11 by 17 copy paper. This is Bristol, so it'll take the ink a little bit better. It's a little thicker. Okay, so there's that. I have a sponge, some water, some clean water. I have this thing which is called a squeegee. You can see this thing is well loved. You want to, when you get one of these things, you want to make sure that you keep the edge nice and crisp, nice and straight. You don't want any dings in this because then you'll have dings in your prints. Okay, I have a spatula, 2 spatulas. Then I've got the ink that I mixed, and that's in that other video that I just finished making. This is sort of an acrylic, it's an acrylic screen printing ink. It's made for paper, it's used for paper. This is a magenta, a processed magenta, and this is a processed blue. There's my inks. Okay, over to here. I have basically a big piece of board. This is the same board they make cabinets out of, kitchen cabinets. I went to a hardware store and got myself just a big sheet of this. These 2 clamps are listed in your list of supplies, and then I just screwed the clamps into the wood, and this is a way for me to hold the screen. So this is the screen that this is why we call this screen printing. This is your screen, and I want you to treat it well, right? So no sharp objects. This is an acrylic, kind of a polyester, a very fine polyester mesh, and we're going to be pushing ink through this thing down onto the surface to make our prints. And if you pop it with an X-Acto blade, the whole thing will unravel. So you just have to be very careful with it. You can see I've got the whole thing taped off. The edge is taped off because ink is going to flow right through this thing. I don't want ink on my edges. So I've taped the whole thing off to begin with. So here we are, we're happy underneath the tent in lovely Oakland, California. Welcome, thanks for being here. First things first, we're going to start with the red. And, oh, look at a butterfly. We'll start with the red. I'm going to place the stencil pretty close to exactly where I want my print to live on the page. This sheet of paper is 11 by 17, so I'm pretty sure it's gonna look good on the sheet of paper that I use. I have taped pieces of cardboard just with blue tape to the bottom of the screen here. And the reason for that is because I want the screen to have a little bit of bounce. I want there to be a little bit of air between this and my stencil. So the cardboard helps with that. It gives you the little kind of leg up. You should know, this is very important, once you get ink down on the screen, you have to keep moving quickly. So it almost is like could be like a two-person job, because you want somebody there to take your prints away from you and then hang them up. As I pull a print, I'm gonna quickly put it up on the back behind me. I'll use the scrap paper first and the nice paper second, right? So I want to make sure it's even printing kind of nicely before I go on to my nicer paper. Wanting to set my space up so that when I start printing, I'm not letting ink dry on the screen, because that'll destroy your print and it'll destroy your screen. So once I get going, I want it to be a smooth process. Okay, so I've got my mixed ink that I've already got going here, my paper to ensure that the stencil sticks properly to the screen. I'm just gonna put some rolls of tape here so that when I pull my first print, this thing is going to adhere to this screen. There's that. Give it some love before you start. You've got a little dab of ink at the top. Now notice I don't put a whole bunch of ink down. They call it a bead of ink. Just enough to pull your print. If you need more ink as you print, you can always put more down. But I'm not using a ton of ink. If you fill this thing with ink, you're likely to just over flood and your print will be a mess. So let's talk about technique with the squeegee. When you put the squeegee down on this screen, you don't want to do this. You want the angle to be this, because you want this sharp edge to be the one that hits the screen, okay? So it's this, not this. And as you pull, you want to feel the table underneath the squeegee your whole way, okay? So I scoop up some ink, right? Check my angle. I breathe in, I press down on the table, and then one smooth, even pull. And this takes practice. One smooth, even pull all the way from here to there. Let's see what we got. All right, not bad. You know, it's funky. The edges are funky, but I kind of expected that, right? That's part of the fun of this thing. Imperfect equals real, okay? So it's not gonna be, with this style of using this kind of stencil, it's not gonna be a perfect print every time. Part of the beauty of this process is that it's not perfect. The clamps make a handy dandy spot to lay your squeegee on so that you don't have your squeegee in your hand or getting ink everywhere. The ink is all contained right here. Okay. So this is gonna look handmade, remember, because you made it in a tent in your backyard. It's not done in a screen print shop. Okay, so quick addendum, you probably noticed that when I was started to pull the red prints that they all look like garbage. And that's because I was pulling the test prints on copy paper and not Bristol. So Bristol, which I asked you all to buy, put that on your grocery list, is a really nice smooth paper, but it's built to take water media as well. So it's really good for for beginners when you're just starting to pull prints. You can cut this down to size. So you can see the difference between the test prints that I was making and the eventual print that I ended up making. You can see how, even though it's still rough, it's still taking the ink a lot better than this. Here's the whole collection. And we've had some varying results here, but I'm happy with a few of them. A few of them turned out. So you always want to cut more paper than you think you need. It's called overage. So if you want to make, say, 20 prints, cut 25 sheets of paper, and you're going to get 20 good prints. with some, you know, some other ones that are, you know, we love all of our children, don't we? But some of them we love a little bit more than the others. So, so here you go. Let this dry for a little bit. The Bristol is great. It takes the ink really, really well. You know, every time I do this process, I have to remind myself, wabi sabi, Michael, wabi sabi. It's the art of it, you know, imperfection. It's the crack in the bowl that makes the bowl super beautiful, right? So that's what we got here, and we'll see what happens when we lay the second color down, right? It might kind of like all these great imperfections might sort of collide together to make something super pretty. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Oh, okay.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah, exactly. Don't waste this ink. Right? You can scrape it off the screen and scrape it back into your heart. So we're going to start the second screen. I have cut a piece of this Mylar, the same Mylar, and I'm going to use this Mylar to register the second color on top of the first color. Now, you might decide that this is your print, right? You might have made a super complicated single color print, and that's your print, and that's awesome. I am a stupid overachiever, so I'm doing two colors. So you can do two colors if you like. You can do one color. You can do three color. You know, go to town. It's Burning Man. It's Burning Man. So I am gonna lay this Mylar down here. So this is a trick that happens when you don't have any other means of registering your first color to your second color. You can. I'm gonna print my first pass of this on top of this Mylar, and then I can use it to register the rest of the prints, and I'll show you how that works in a second. Goes like that, right? What are you gonna do? Listen, it's 2020. Ooh, there's a bug. Filthy dirty rag. Tape, ink, paper, squeegee, brain. Breath. Shit. Okay. Remember, 45-degree angle, right? Feel the table underneath your squeegee. And I didn't put enough ink on screen. Ooh. Pretty. You know, again, splorpy, uneven. Okay, and we're going to print on this Mylar sheet first. Okay, so we have a print here. So we know where our ink is landing. And we use that to register the rest of the prints. Comme ça. Grab your print, stick it under the sheet, and you want it to be right about there. Like that. Something like that. Yeah. Take your Mylar sheet away. This thing is called the Clairol Dry Guide. My dad gave it to me before I left for college. It just gives you a rough indication of where stuff is going to go down. Wow. Right. Fiery. Manny. Bernie. Alright, I am not displeased with this. I mean, it's still freaking crazy looking, but... Will you shut that kid up? There's only one star of a Helen Lawson production, and that's me, Helen Lawson, remember? Mouth is getting super sploopy. Hang on, Sploopy. Sploopy, hang on. Now, you can trim this down, of course, to make it prettier. Or not. You can just leave it ugly. Rough and ugly.